Episode 4, The Betrayal Uncovered. Chioma had always trusted her instincts, and lately, something had felt off. Adekunle was distant, his once warm presence now cold and distracted. He no longer sought her out for evening walks, their once shared moments of joy seemed forced. Bola, too, had become more elusive, avoiding eye contact, her laughter too loud, too forced. It was as if both of them were keeping a secret that threatened to shatter the life she had built. Her heart grew heavy with unease, but Chioma refused to confront her suspicions until she could no longer ignore them. One fateful evening, Chioma couldn't sleep. The air was thick with a sense of impending doom, and the village was eerily quiet. She decided to go for a walk to clear her mind. As she made her way through the moonlit paths of the village, her footsteps slowed when she heard voices nearby, familiar voices. Adekunle and Bola. She froze, her heart pounding. The shadows of the trees danced around them as she crept closer, hiding behind the thick foliage. The conversation she overheard confirmed her worst fears. Adekunle's voice was low, almost a whisper, but Chioma heard every word as if they were daggers piercing her heart. He confessed to Bola that he could no longer hide his feelings for her. The guilt was tearing him apart, but he couldn't deny what had happened between them. Bola, her face illuminated by the moon, stepped closer, touching his arm tenderly. Chioma watched in horror, tears stinging her eyes as the man she loved confessed his betrayal in the most intimate of moments. Chioma's world collapsed in that instant. Every moment, every memory of their marriage, every laugh shared with Bola, it all crumbled like a fragile clay pot smashed to the ground. She covered her mouth to stifle a sob, her body trembling as she crouched down behind the trees. Her tears fell freely, mixing with the dirt at her feet, the pain too much to bear. She had never felt so alone, so betrayed, as she did in that moment, hidden in the shadows, watching the two people she trusted most tear her heart apart. Unable to hold back any longer, Chioma stepped out of the shadows, her voice trembling with rage and heartbreak. "How could you?" she demanded, her voice breaking through the silence like a clap of thunder. Adekunle and Bola spun around, their faces filled with shock and fear. Chioma's eyes blazed with fury, her chest heaving as she fought to keep control. She had never imagined herself in this position, but here she was, betrayed by the two people she had loved and trusted most. Adekunle, realizing the gravity of his betrayal, stepped forward, his hands raised in a desperate attempt to calm her. "Chioma, I never meant for this to happen," he pleaded, his voice thick with regret. But his words only made things worse. Chioma's pain flared into a white-hot fury. "Never meant for this to happen," she echoed, her voice rising. "You betrayed me. You both did." Adekunle's face crumpled with guilt, but it was too late. The damage was done. Bola stood frozen, unable to meet Chioma's eyes. Her heart pounded in her chest, guilt washing over her like a tidal wave. How could she ever explain herself? She had crossed a line she knew could never be uncrossed. Her hands trembled as she tried to speak, but no words came. Instead, she looked down at the ground, her silence an admission of guilt. Chioma's glare burned into her, the weight of her betrayal almost too much to bear. Chioma's chest tightened as she looked between Adekunle and Bola. This was the man she had given her life to, and the friend she had considered a sister. But now, everything had changed. She could feel the weight of their betrayal pressing down on her, crushing her. For a moment, she closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. When she opened them, her decision was made. She turned to Adekunle, her voice steady but filled with pain. "We are done," she said, her words final. "You both mean nothing to me now." Without another word, Chioma turned and walked away. Her heart felt like it had been ripped from her chest, but she refused to let them see her break. The night was cold, the wind biting at her skin, but she felt nothing. Each step was heavier than the last, but she kept moving forward, away from the life she had known, away from the people who had betrayed her. The tears streamed down her face, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. When Chioma reached her home, it felt emptier than it ever had before. She stood at the doorway for a moment, her hands trembling as she pushed it open. The familiar scent of the house hit her, memories flooding back of the life she had shared with Adekunle. But those memories were tainted now, twisted by the betrayal she had just uncovered. She collapsed onto the floor, her body racked with sobs as the reality of what had happened crashed over her. She had lost everything in one night: her husband, her friend, her trust. Episode 5: A New Path. Days passed after Chioma's heart had been shattered by the revelation of Adekunle and Bola's betrayal. Each morning, she woke up feeling the weight of loss, her home no longer a place of warmth and comfort but a reminder of broken trust. She moved through her daily routines like a ghost, her eyes hollow, her heart numb. The village, once full of life, now seemed distant, as if she no longer belonged. But deep inside, Chioma knew that she couldn't live in this shadow forever. She needed to find a way to heal. Seeking guidance, Chioma went to visit the village elder, a wise woman known for her strength and wisdom. The elder's home, nestled deep in the heart of the village, was a place of peace, filled with the scent of herbs and the soft sound of wind chimes. Chioma sat before her, pouring out her heart, the pain, the betrayal, the loss of trust. The elder listened quietly, her weathered hands resting gently on Chioma's as she spoke. And when Chioma finished, the elder looked into her eyes and said, "This is not the end. You are stronger than this. The path forward is yours to choose." Chioma left the elder's house with a newfound clarity. She could not stay in the village where her past haunted every corner, where the people who betrayed her lived. She needed to leave, to find a new path far from the pain and memories. The decision wasn't easy. This village was her home, the place where she had grown up, where she had loved and lost. But now it was a cage, and she needed to break free. With a heavy heart, she packed her belongings, preparing for the journey ahead. Early the next morning, Chioma walked through the village one last time. The familiar sounds of roosters crowing, women preparing food, and children laughing filled the air, but Chioma felt distant from it all. She had said her goodbyes to the few who mattered, and now, she was ready to leave. As she walked toward the village gate, she paused for a moment, turning back to take in the place that had shaped her life. With one last look, she breathed deeply, feeling both the weight of her past and the promise of her future. Chioma's journey took her far from the village, across rivers and hills, through dense forests and open plains. Each step felt like shedding a layer of her old self, the pain and betrayal slowly fading into the background as she moved forward. The land around her was vast and unfamiliar, yet it felt like the freedom she had been searching for. Along the way, she found solace in the natural beauty around her, the rustling of leaves, the songs of birds, the wind that whispered of new beginnings. After weeks of traveling, Chioma arrived at a new village nestled at the foot of a mountain. This place was different, smaller, quieter, with an air of tranquility. The people here were kind but distant at first, curious about the stranger in their midst. But Chioma felt a sense of peace here that she hadn't felt in a long time. She decided to stay, to build a new life for herself in this quiet village. It was here, among new faces and new opportunities, that Chioma would begin again. In the months that followed, Chioma threw herself into her new life. She learned the ways of the village, offering her skills as a healer, a trait she had learned from her mother. The people began to trust her, and soon, Chioma was welcomed into the heart of the community. Each day brought new challenges and new joys, and slowly, the weight of her past began to lift. She had found a new home, one where she could rebuild, where her heart could heal. As the seasons changed, so did Chioma. She found strength in herself that she never knew existed. The pain of her past had not disappeared, but it no longer controlled her. She had survived betrayal and heartbreak, and she had come out the other side stronger, wiser, and more at peace. She spent her evening sitting by the fire, reflecting on her journey, the love she had lost, the life she had left behind, and the new path she had chosen. And for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of contentment. One evening, as Chioma sat outside her home, a new face appeared, a man from the village, kind and gentle, who had admired her from afar. He sat with her in the quiet of the evening, and they talked for hours. For the first time, Chioma felt a spark of something she thought she had lost, hope, perhaps even love. But this time, it was different. She was no longer the woman who had once been betrayed. She was stronger now, and if love was to come, it would be on her terms, with her heart guarded, but open to the possibility of something new. Chioma stood on the hill overlooking the village, the wind gently tugging at her dress. The horizon stretched out before her, vast and full of possibilities. Her heart, once broken, now felt whole again. She had walked through fire, survived betrayal, and found her way to a new beginning. And now, the future was hers to shape. With the strength she had gained and the wisdom she had earned, Chioma smiled softly, knowing that whatever came next, she was ready.